Okay, so we're on chapter, actually, technically, we're chapter 10, and we're gonna go, I want to do 10 and like the end of 10 and moving into 11. So we are in that area where we started talking about it, and it's like, remember, there's like all this drama is happening in Yechezkel's vision with that man that is wearing the linen, lebush habadim, and like the whole thing with the coals and like all that stuff. And that's basically leads us to the kind of the climax of that lengthy nevuah, starting at chapter 8 all the way to chapter 11. Now we're getting into the climax, which is the departure of the Shekhinah. So the departure of the Shekhinah, that part of the prophecy, of the vision, starts on Pasuk Chet. Okay, it's basically, it's Chet through Kaf Bet, okay, 8 through 24. That is the description of the Shekhinah is departing. So now, we're going to read it in a second, but from the very beginning, we see something, we see stuff that we're used to already, things that we've seen in the first chapter, right? It's the chariot. And and that represents the place where the Shekhinah is. Okay? So what happens is the glory of God goes from above the Kruvim. Now, when I say the Kruvim, I mean the Kruvim that are in Kodesh HaKodashim. If you remember, the Kruvim are above the Aron. We have those two images, and the glory of God is above them. Not to be confused with the other Kruvim, which we're going to see, and it's very symbolic that it's the same name, the Kruvim that are part of the chariot. And so the glory of God, which is the Shekhinah, moves from above the Kruvim to Miftan Habayit, the threshold of the house, meaning the temple, getting ready to go on the chariot. So basically, it's like, the Havdil, it's the image of, somebody's in the house, going from inside the house to the door because the taxi is waiting outside. Okay? And then the chariot is already warming up. The engine is already on. And we hear a kol kanfei hakruvim nishma dechatzer hachitzona kekol el shadai b'dor. And there's already that noise. Means stuff is happening. Okay, now we're going to read those psukim, and we're going to see like there are going to be two types of psukim, so to say. One is going to those psukim that describe the chariot itself. And that stuff is very, very similar to what we have already learned in Perek Aleph. And the other ones, 3 psukim actually, have that in mind. It's going to be 15, 18, and 19, going to talk about the journey itself. So 15, 18, 19 is the journey itself, description of the journey itself that the Shekhinah is doing. The rest is a description of the chariot. So what I'm going to do is, so we're going to make it easier. We're going to, I'm going to read the whole thing in Hebrew. Pasuk Chet. וירא לקרובים תבנית יד אדם תחת כנפיהם וירא והנה 4 אופנים אצל הקרובים. Again, there's 4 wheels by the קרובים, אופן אחד אצל הקרוב אחד ואופן אחד אצל הקרוב אחד ומראה האופנים כעין אבן תרשיש very similar to what we saw before. ומראיהם דמות אחד לארבעתם כאשר יהיה האופן בתוך האופן, and they all look the same. It's a wheel inside a wheel, just like we learned פרק א'. בלכתם אל ארבעת רבעיהם ילכו ולא ייסבו בלכתם כי המקום אשר לפני הראש אחריו ילכו לא ייסבו בלכתם. And they have this 360 angle motion that they don't need to, because they have the four faces in four directions. It's a multi-directional, and therefore they can go, they don't need to turn. They're ready to take any direction, right? And it's wheel inside wheel, so you don't need to make even the turn, okay? וכל, פסוק י"ב, וכל בשרם וגביהם וידיהם וכנפיהם והאופנים אליהם עיניים סביב לארבעתם ופועניהם. Again, they have eyes in all directions, therefore they don't need even to turn. לאופנים, להם קורא גלגל באוזני, וארבעה פנים לאחד, and each one of those אופנים has four faces, פני האחד פני הכרוב, ופני השני פני אדם, והשלישי פני אריה, והרביעי פני הנשר. Just like we read in פרק א', you have the four faces, because it's the four directions, the four sides, right? The face of the כרוב. We'll talk about it in a second. We'll understand what it means, the face of a כרוב. And the second is a man, and the third is a lion, and the fourth is an eagle. And here is a description of the movement itself of the Shekhinah. Vayeromu hakruvim hi hachaya. Those kruvim, so be not to get confused. We have the kruvim that are above the ark, and now we have a kruvim which are part of the chariot. Okay, Vayeromu hakruvim. So those kruvim, which are kind of like the wheels or foundations of those chariot, hi hachaya. Asher ראיתי בנהר כבר. He said, that's the same vision, that's the same image that I've seen in chapter 1, when I was in נהר כבר. ובלכת הכרובים ילכו האופנים אצלם, and when those כרובים move, those wheels are moving with them. וביסת הכרובים את כנפיהם לעור מעל הארץ, לא ייסבו האופנים גם הם מאצלם. And when they move, like they have those wings, and when they lift their wings, the wheels do not turn. They don't need to turn because they have 360 movement, so they don't need to turn. You can go either way. ועומדם יעמודו ורומם ירומו אותם, כי רוח החיה בהם. When they stand and when they lift it, ויצא כבוד אדוני מעל למפתן הבית ויעמוד על הכרובים. Here is another description of what happens to the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is leaving מפתן הבית, the threshold, the entrance. ויעמוד על הכרובים, and the glory is on those כרובים, meaning it's on the chariot. ויישאו הכרובים את כנפיהם ויראו מן הארץ לעיני בצאתם, and the כרובים stretch their wings and they're up. I told you, it's like a drone, so that goes up. And I see it. והאופנים לעומתם. ויעמוד פתח שער בית אדוני הקדמוני וכבוד אלוהי ישראל עליהם מלמעלה. And that drone, that chariot goes to שער הקדמוני. North, right? Anyone looks at the English? North? Above, but like, שער הקדמוני, the eastern, yes? Gate, okay, eastern, okay. היא החיה שראיתי תחת אלוהי ישראל בנהר כבר. That's the same image that I've seen before, בעדה ככרובים. Now I understand that what I've seen back then, it's כרובים. Back then he talks about this dmut, this stuff, this image, he didn't know what it is. Now he says, I know it's כרובים. Now it's interesting, because we have כרובים above the ark, in Kodesh HaKodeshim. Now we have a Kruvim also as part of the chariot, and the Kvod and the glory of God has moved from the Kruvim in Kodesh HaKodeshim to the Kruvim that are part of the chariot. ארבעה פנים לאחד. Those Kruvim have four faces, וארבעה כנפיים לאחד, and four wings. ודמות ידי אדם תחת כנפיהם, and they have like hands human hands under or beneath those wings. And the faces are just the faces that I've seen before in chapter 1. And they can go in all directions. Now, let's delve into that a little bit. So in verse 15, the Kruvim start to, as I mentioned, they start to ascend. They start to go up. And that is the next stage of the journey. On Pasuk Yudchet, in verse 18, the Shekhinah itself start to move. So we have the Kruvim first, they move, and then the Shekhinah goes on. So the vehicle is already on, and then the Kruvim, and then the Shekhinah goes there. Now, so what happens? The whole chariot is on, right? It's on. The engine is running, and then they're up in the air. It's already in the air, and the Shekhinah moves from the Kruvim of Kodesh HaKodashim in the temple through the entrance, Petach HaBayit, into the chariot, and the chariot goes through the eastern gate. Fine. Now we understand what is the function of the Merkava, of this chariot. It's a temporary resting place for the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah was in temple up until now. So now this is temporary. It's going to be in this chariot, and we'll see where it's going to go. Now, what's interesting is the faces. In Perek Aleph it says, "Udmut pneihem pnei Adam, ufnei Aryeh, ufnei Shor, ufnei Nesher." So we had a bull, eagle, man, lion. And here it says, Kruv, Adam, Aryeh, Nesher. Shor is missing, but instead of that we have what? A Kruv, cherub, whatever that means, right? It's like, I love it in English. Then, how are we going to translate Kruv? Oh, I don't know. Cherub. Sounds good. Yeah, that's not that Kruv. So now, but if we put the two psukim together, we understand that what? Kruv is a bull. Because if we're saying that lion, eagle, man, bull, lion, man, eagle, cherub, and we don't know what cherub is, that means it's a bull. He says it's the same image that I've seen before. But in chapter 1, he calls it bull. In chapter 10, he calls it a kruv. So it's got to be a bull. Why this is so significant? So that means, first of all, so let's understand first of all what it means. It means that the body is the body of a bull, but the faces, it has the four faces. One is bull, one is eagle, one is man, one is lion. So the chariot rests on those four bulls, but those four bulls each has four faces. One is a face of a bull. Why this is important? Why this is significant? What is the symbolism here? No, come on. Bull is also, thank you very much.
What did you say?
The golden calf.
Oh. I didn't told him not to.
What do we say? Okay, let's go back to that story of the golden calf for a second. In the time just before Matan Torah, there's a description over there of Moshe goes into Mount Sinai and and Aaron and the 70 whatever, and they see what? ויראו את אלוקי ישראל ותחת רגליו כמעשה לבנת הספיר וכעצם השמיים לתואר. They see some sort of a description also of what's happening up there because the heaven opened up. It's very, very similar to what Yechezkel describes. Livnat HaSapir, all that kind of stuff. Now we understand perhaps a little bit better what Aharon did in the golden calf. The people come and they say, we don't know what's happened to Moshe. He's not coming, whatever. So they want us go back. They want to, what are they used to? Idol worshiping, whatever, all this stuff like Egypt. Aaron says, you know what? Okay, let me stall. Let me kill some time until Moshe comes. He needs to create something because they need something tangible. That's what those people know. They just left Egypt 5 minutes ago.
They heard the voice of
Ah,
Moshe.
okay. So what is Aaron is going to do? So Aaron is going to rely on what he himself experienced. Well, guess what? He just had a vision. Aaron himself, the sky opened up. What did he see? What does he see over there? He's seeing not really the Merkava, but he sees elements of it. But what elements does he see over there?
Sure.
She's the shore. First of all, it's not me, it's the Ibn Ezra, but okay.
The fire and the shore popped out.
That's what he says. When Moshe says to him, well, what have you done? He said, I took the gold, I put it in the fire, and that's what came out. Yeah, but I'm saying like he created something. Okay, he created something. Now his intentions were good. He was trying to, and he thought that it's going to be something that people. So first of all, he thought, okay, this is what I've seen. So it has something to do with God. So let me do that. It's something that is familiar to them. Right? Remember, that was also one of like Egyptian, they believed in those gods, right? And it's something tangible they can relate to. And he thought, okay, this is part of something that's going to remind them about God. Aaron did not think that they're going to start worshiping the Egel itself. They thought it's going to be like something that represents, right? It's like when we bring a korban, and that's what all the prophets are screaming about. When the people in the time of the temple, they brought korbanot. So the korban has two elements to it, right? When you bring a korban, there are two things that are happening at the same time. One is the technical, let's call it the external act, which is bringing in the korban. It has to be shechten in a certain way, and the blood is going to be sprinkled in a certain way, blah, 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 blah. All those technicalities, some are eaten, some are burned, blah, whatever, all that stuff. Fine. What's the other dimension? It's the internal. It's the confession. If it's a chatat or a sham, for example, then it's a confession. If it's a korban todah, there's going to be thanksgiving. There's going to be some sort of a mental process, something that is a declaration, something that the owner is doing while the korban is being brought, right? The korban is being brought usually by the kohanim. That was kind of in silence. Yes, sometimes they had to recite all sorts of psukim, but technically speaking, that was silence. But the parallel process was done by the owner. the person who brings the korban, and he or she would have to go through some sort of a something, either verbal or a process of tshuva, or declaration, or some sort of a cheshbon nefesh, like a mental something. It depends on the korban, depends on the circumstances. And once that's not happening, then the korban is not valid as well. So both have to happen. By the way, that's what happened with tefillah. I'm going to talk about it in a second. But the point is that at some point, people gave korbanot and said, okay, just take the bull, take the sheep, do whatever, I'm done, I'm good. They didn't do the internal aspect of things. And for that, the prophet says, obviously, message from God. Lama li rov zivchechem? What do I need this? God says, this is ridiculous. This is not, it has no value. I understand you want to give gift to God, you want to show your appreciation. I understand all that kind of stuff. That is all fine and dandy. Assuming you're going to go through the process, you're going to go through the internal process of whatever that. If you're not going to do that, what's the point? Why kill the innocent animal? Right? By the way, put that aside, just today, when we say tefillot replaces the korbanot, right? That's what you say, that our tefillot, unshalma farim sfatenu. That's right. We have tefillot instead of the korbanot. What happened? How'd that happen? How'd that happen? It's very simple. No, it's very, very simple. What happened was, once Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, you could not bring korbanot anymore. Right? So the external act is gone. Once it's gone, all you're left is with the internal one. It's the mental process, something, right? And this was the beginning of tefillah. The rabbi said, okay, let's take this and expand it, because we can't do the other one. Yes? No. It started before that. It started with Abraham already. It started with Abraham. And then the Gemara talks about it. It's the classic question about the Gemara. Tfilot, avot tiknum, or keneged korbanot. It's a fundamental, famous question on the Gemara that says, what is the source for tefillah? Is it Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? And they bring text proof that Abraham established the concept for shacharit, Yitzchak for the concept of mincha, and Yaakov for Ma'ariv, or is it keneged korbanot? And the bottom line, the conclusion of the Talmud, both. We draw on both elements. We take both. So the concept came already from the Avot. Definitely, Hannah is another example. Moshe Rabbeinu talks to God, prays for God, like, 40 yom 40 layla, on behalf of Miriam, Elna Refanala. I can give you hundreds of examples. The point is that the concept comes already from, right? But the details and the format and all that kind of stuff is affected by the korban. What time we're davening, what kind of elements they're going to have, blah, 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 blah. All that kind of stuff comes from the laws of the korbanot. So it's both. Anyway, let's go back to, yes. Yeah. Drunk. Correct.
So this is where we start with the law are much more than you bring an end position. You lose maybe some kind of income from this element will not bring you because that's a combined. But when you are done, when you're playing for you are, then you have.
Correct, but that's what's supposed to happen. That's what's supposed to happen. By the way, from Hannah, we learned what? The tefillah, specifically what? The format of the Amidah. The fact that we do the Amidah silently, that's from Hannah. Because it says, "Rak sfatea naot vekola lo yishamea." From that, the rabbis learn that the heart of the tefillah, which is the Amidah, you do that silently. Okay, let's go back to Yechezkel. So the idea here that both Aharon, now we understand from Yechezkel this idea of which is so significant, and obviously the problem was that the people didn't understand what Aaron was trying to do. And they thought that the Egel itself is what we're going to worship. He meant something that is going to remind them of God. Okay. Anyway, so Yechezkel sees that journey of the Shekhinah departing Beit HaMikdash. And as we said before, from this moment on, the temple is no longer relevant. At this point, from this moment on, the temple is on borrowed time. You can't prevent the destruction of the temple. Now, that journey is not done yet. Only the next chapter, we're going to start now, chapter 11. Here we're going to understand where the chariot is going. Not only that, we'll understand. You remember how this long prophecy started? Chapter 8, with the elders of Judah come. They came to Yechezkel, came to his house, and we don't know what's the purpose. We don't know why. We just like, the elders of Judah are sitting in front of me, and I have this vision, and he goes into all those visions. But we still don't know what's the purpose of those visions. We can assume that the visions has to do with something that they asked him, or that he needs to tell them. That's going to happen in the next chapter. So here we go. Chapter 11. Now we're going to, so this is the end of that long prophecy. And in the meantime, we know the Shekhinah moves east. Now, the people of Yerushalayim say the following. I'm going to do psukim, the first three psukim. Okay, and the wind lifted me and take me to the eastern gate. And then over there I see 25 people. I see two elders, two distinguished people. We don't see those names anymore, by the way, in the Tanach. We just can assume that they are from the leadership. They are among those 25 people. And I've been told that these are the people who are wicked. Pay attention to this pasuk. Lo vekarov benot batim hi hasir v'anachnu abasar. I'm gonna read that in English. Who say the end is not near. Build houses. The city is the cauldron, pot, and we are the meat. Okay? We need to understand a couple of things here. So first of all, who are those 25 people? So if you remember in chapter 8, we already met 25 people in the wall. Remember, in the wall, in that hidden room in the wall that he sees. It says also 25 people, and they're bowed down to the sun. All that form of avodah. Maybe it's the same 25 people that they moved from the wall to a different location. Maybe a different group of people. It really doesn't matter. But also, just like the other group, this group also have representatives from the leadership. And they spread a message that's supposed to, a message that keeps the people calm. What do they say? It's a message that's supposed to kind of like tell the people, yeah, everything's fine, everything will be fine. Don't worry. לא וקרוב בנות בתים, היא הסיר ואנחנו הבשר. We got to understand what it means. So first of all, let's separate the two sections, okay? The second part, he hasir ve'anachnu abasar, she, it, meaning it's the city of Yerushalayim, is the pot, we are the meat. Meaning, just like the pot defends the meat from burning, right? When you cook a piece of meat, put it in the pot, right? That's what allows it to cook, but not to burn, right? So that's the imagery that they're talking about, right? So that means it gives, like, everything is fine. The city will protect us, which creates a problem for the first half of the sentence. The first half of the sentence is lo vekarov benot batim, meaning houses are not going to be built soon. It means it talks about despair. So Rashi and Radak and many others say, no. What you need to do is you need to put a comma between lo vekarov and then benot batim. I think the art scroll, the way I read it here, that's what they did. Yeah, the end is not near, exclamation mark. Build houses. It's not, the end is not, the end is near, don't build houses, but rather the end is not near. Build houses. Everything is fine. You have nothing to worry about. So this is Radak and Rashi and many others. And according to this, it means what? That the people of Yerushalayim say that all those prophecies of not only by the way of Yechezkel, but it's also Yeshayahu and Yirmiyahu, yeah, they're true. But it's not now. It's going to happen like a long time from now. Now everything is fine. You can build new houses. You have nothing to worry about. And we know it also from other places in Yechezkel, for example, where he indicates that the people believe him when he said things are going to get bad and you're going to be punished and all that kind of stuff. But he said, yeah, he's right. But you know what? It's going to happen in a very, very long, tons of time from now. It's far, far, far away from us. You have nothing to worry about it now. We're not in that point. Okay? Like, for example, just if you want to take a look at the next chapter at chapter 12, verse 27. It says, Ben Adam, Hine Bet Yisrael Omrim, the people of Israel say, what? Hechazon asher hu chozer leyamim rabim, o le'itim rechokot hu niba. People of Israel said that this vision that he said, meaning that Yechezkel has, it's for many, many years from now. It's not for now. Okay? So we have this indication that the people of Israel, that's what they think. Yeah, Yechezkel is telling the truth. But it's going to happen in 100 generations from now. It's not going to happen now. So you have nothing to worry about.
He's in the preliminary.
Correct.
Dispersion.
He's in the first wave.
With
All the leadership, yes.
all the leaders.
Political and religious leadership, yes.
So the final is yet to come.
Correct. This is 6 years, 5 years before. Yes. He's not, he quotes the people of Yerushalayim. He is Yerushalayim. He Hasir. Yerushalayim is the pot. V'anachnu abasar. Yeah.
But can't you be telling the people, according to the previous prophecy of Yechezkel, build your houses because it's going to take 75 years till you come back. So build your houses, to keep a few people in town.
It's not that simple. We'll see in a second. You'll see what I'm talking about. The people who are going to stay there. We'll get there in a second.
People who are going to stay there, not good people.
Yes. Well, you'll see in a second. But even when we talk about this imagery, we understand that this is temporary. Because what happens if you put the pot on the stove for a very, very long time? At some point, all the liquid is going to evaporate. And then what happens? It's going to burn. The meat is going to burn. So when they say that like destruction is going to happen, but it will happen in a long time from now, because now there's still water, there's still liquid in the pot, and therefore you can build houses. That's basically the image. Now, against that is what God says. God says, verses 4 through 12. Yud Aleph, I'm back in Yud Aleph. 4 through. Lachen, hinave aleim hinave ben adam. Therefore, tell them. Vatipol alai ruach Adonai vayomer elai. I have that vision, and I heard the following. Emor ko amar Adonai. God says, Ken amartem beit Yisrael u'ma'alot ruchachem ani yidati. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. הרביתם חלליכם בעיר הזאת, ומילאתם חוצותיה חלל. There's a lot of bloodshed in this city. לכן, כה אמר אדוני אלוהים חלליכם אשר שמתם בתוכה, המה הבשר והיא הסיר. Therefore, God says, the corpse, the dead, that's going to be the meat. והיא הסיר. And Yerushalayim, the city, is the pot. ואתכם הוציא מתוכה. You're going to be kicked out. חרב יראתם וחרב אביא עליכם. You're afraid of the sword, and that's exactly what you're getting. והוצאתי אתכם מתוכה ונתתי אתכם ביד זרים ועשיתי בכם שפטים, and I take you out of the city, and you're going to be given in the hands of strangers. בחרב תיפולו על גבול ישראל לשפוט אתכם. You're going to be killed. Al Gevul Israel eshpot etchem. Okay, we're going to talk about that exactly. What does it mean on the border of Israel? Vidatem ki ani Adonai. And now God uses the same image that they used. Hi lo tihye lachem lesir, va'atem tiyu betocha lebasar. The city is not going to be your protector, the sir, the pot. And you're going to be the meat. Al Gevul Israel eshpot etchem. You're going to be judged by the gvul. We'll see exactly what it means, the border. And you will know that I am God, and you did not follow my rules, and you violated my judgments, just like the other goyim, just like the other nations around you. First of all, God says something that we have seen before. It's ben adam lechavero. The big problem is ben adam lechavero. All the injustice, the bloodshed. These are the issues. That is why the people of Jerusalem are going to be punished. That's number one. Then from Pasuk Zayin, it's the answer to what the people of Yerushalayim said before. But actually, there are two parts to that. So let's separate it for a second. First is verses 7, 8, 9, 10. And the kind of like the important part of it is חלליכם אשר שמתם בתוכה, המה הבשר והיא הסיר ואתכם מוציא מתוכה. Your dead, the dead ones that you have placed in the city, meaning the people that you have killed, that's the meat, and the city is the pot, and you're going to be taken out from the city. Now, the second answer is verses 11 and 12. And this is kind of like a little bit different. It says, "Hi lo tiyeh lachem lesir, v'atem tiyu betocha lebasar." The city is not going to protect you. It's not going to be the sir. It's not going to be the pot. And you will be the meat inside.
Unprotected.
Correct. So the first part, the first answer highlights that Yerushalayim indeed will be the pot that will protect, but it's going to protect what? Who? The dead ones. Only the dead. חלליכם אשר שמתם בתוכה. So only the corpse are going to stay in Yerushalayim. Those who remain alive are going to be kicked out of the city. So ironically, the meat, so to say, the flesh, the meat that is going to be protected by the pot are the dead. Now, here we understand also that the people are aware, and they're aware also of the future punishment, which is cherev, sword. Cherev yeretem v'cherev avi alechem. You're afraid of the sword, and yet that's exactly what you're gonna get. But they think that it's gonna come much later in life. So the prophet says, it's gonna happen very soon, not in the far future. Now, then it says, "B'cherev tipolu al gvul Yisrael yishpot etchem." You will be killed by the sword. Al gvul Yisrael, by the border of Israel, you'll be judged. What exactly it means? It means that even there are going to be some that are going to be able to escape the city, but they won't be able to be saved. They're going to be caught in the last minute, just before they cross the border. They're going to be caught and killed. Now, the second part, the city is not going to be the pot. And you will be the meat, as Hannah suggested, unprotected. We need to understand. If the city not going to be the pot, how can you be the meat inside? Right? Because that's if there's no, it's like, okay. And the Mefarshim actually are doing all sorts of acrobatics here and trying to explain it. It's really difficult. However, I saw in the Dat, today I didn't bring the Dat Mikra from downstairs. The Dat Mikra suggests that it's a short way of the sentence, meaning the word lo belongs there again. So in other words, it should be Hi lo tihiyeh lachem lesir, ve'atem lo tihiyu betocha lebasar. The city is not going to be the pot, and you're not. The word "not" is missing there, but that's the interpretation. And he brings the Dat Mikra brings actually proofs from other places in the book that this is how Yechezkel many times speaks. It's a kind of a short way to say certain things. Okay? So the city is not going to protect them. It's not going to be the pot, and they're not going to be the meat. Why? Because they're going to be taken out of the city, and even if they'll be able to escape, they're not going to make it until the border where they're going to be judged. Now, while Yechezkel is still prophesied, is in the middle of the prophecy, something horrible is happening. Pasuk Yud Gimel. Vayiki Navi, okay, I'm prophesying, Uflatyahu ben Benaya met. One of those leaders that he mentioned, one of the 25 people, drops dead. ויפול על פניי ויזע קול גדול ואומר, אהה, אדוני אלוהים, כלה אתה עושה את שארית ישראל. One of those two ministers, Sarim, that he mentioned before, dies. Obviously, that's part of the prophecy. Okay, that's because he says, I'm in the middle of the vision. So we can assume that this is, you remember from the previous chapter on Perek Tet, that the command was given for the 6 people to go and start killing. Remember that? So it's possible that, whoever's in charge of the killing now reached Platiao. But if that's the case, why only he is dead? Why not the other 24? Like, what's... So it seems that that's just the beginning. He is the first one. And because of that, we understand why Yechezkel screams, Aha, Adonai Elohim, kala ta oseh et she'erit Israel. You're killing everybody, the she'erit Israel, the remnants of Israel. You're killing the remnants of Israel. Have that in mind, because that's important. Now, if you remember in chapter 9, when he sees the vision, and he's told that the people of Jerusalem are going to be killed, he says, Aha! Adonai Elohim HaMashchit ata et kol she'erit Israel. He says almost the same language. God, you're killing the remnants of Israel. In both times, he calls the people of Jerusalem she'erit Israel, the remnants of Israel. This is very significant. You'll see in a second. Because that's a huge mistake by Yechezkel. We'll see in a second. I'm going to keep you... I'm not going to tell it to you, Maxine. She'erit Israel, yes. That's in Spanish Portuguese in Manhattan. So, because that mistake has to do with the central or the main message of the whole prophecy. Okay, that's the mistake of the people of Jerusalem. Okay, I'm going to tell it to you. That's the mistake of the people of Jerusalem, and that's the same mistake that Yechezkel is doing, i.e., he looks at the people of Yerushalayim as the remnants of Israel. That's not the case. The remnants of Israel, as we're going to find out, probably next week though, not next week, in 2 weeks from now, is the people that are already in Bavel. We'll see in a minute. So now it's the second saying of Yerushalayim, of the people of Yerushalayim. And here we're going to understand the whole punchline of this long prophecy. I'm in Pasuk Yudaled. וידבר אדוני אלי לאמור, בן אדם, אחיך אנשי גאולתך וכל בית ישראל כולו אשר אמרו להם, יושבי ירושלים רחקו מעל אדוני, לנו היא ניתנה הארץ למורשה. Your brothers, the people are going to be redeemed, and the whole house of Israel. Who are they? Listen to the continuation of the pasuk. Asher amru lahem yoshvei Yerushalayim rachaku me'al Adonai. Those people to whom the people of Yerushalayim said, Lanu hi nitna haaretz lemorasha. The land was given to us. You guys are Yordim. You guys have nothing to do with God anymore. I.e., who are those people? People like Yechezkel, people that are already in Bavel. Next pasuk. Oh, I'm sorry. So now we understand what is the reason that the elders of Yehuda came to Yechezkel in the beginning of the prophecy in chapter 8. It seems that the people of Yerushalayim they disregard the people that are already in Bavel, and they tell them, or at least about them, "Rachaku me'al Adonai, lanu initna haaretz lemorasha." They're gone. They're finished. They have nothing to do. They're not the people of God anymore. The land is given to us. We are the good ones. We are the remnants of Israel. And the people in Bavel kind of buying into that, including Yechezkel himself, who calls the people in Yerushalayim the remnants Sheret Israel. Where is this coming from? Actually, this is something that is not new. We see it in the Tanach many, many times before. So, for example, meaning, what do we see? It's that claim that those who do not live in Israel have nothing to do with the worship of God. They're out. They're excommunicated. If you remember, in Sefer Yoshua, so you remember the famous story of the 2.5 tribes, Gad, right? And Reuven and Chatzi Shevet HaManashe. The 2.5 tribes, they come to Moshe already in the desert, and they say, Gad, Reuven, Chatzi Shevet HaManashe. They say to Moshe, we want to stay in the eastern part on the other side of the Jordan River. And Moshe makes a deal with them, right? If they fight, yeah, okay. So what happens? Fast forward to the time of Yoshua. They fight, and then they go back to Ever HaYarden. And what do they do over there? They build a mizbeach. They build a monument. And the claim of the other Shvatim is what? En lachem chelek b'Adonai. You live in Chutz La'aretz. You guys live in Beverly Hills. That means you're cut out. You're not part of the Jewish people. And this is why you built your own mizbeach over there in Ever HaYarden. David and Shaul, also another example. David and Shaul have a conversation, and if you remember, David is forced, right, because Shaul wants to kill him. So he's running away, and at some point he crossed the border. He goes to Edom Agiti, and was whatever. He crossed the border, and he says, "Ki gershuni hayom istapeach benachalat Adonai lemor lech avod Elohim acherim." The people tell him, "Go worship other God. You're not in Israel." It has to do with the perception of paganism, of idol worship here at that time of like the other nations. That means that there is a specific God to each land. Each land has a specific God. And therefore, there's not only one God that controls the whole world. There's the God of Israel that is in the land of Israel. There's the God of Bavel. So if you are not in Israel, you have nothing to do with the God of Israel. Right? This is where it comes from. So now, obviously, that's not what we believe. We believe that God is, Hashem is everywhere, right? Everybody knows the Chabad song, Hashem is here, right? Hashem is everywhere. However, within that understanding, Eretz Israel has a special place. And Chazal has, like, obviously in a metaphoric, says, Kol hadar be'eretz Israel dome kemi sheyesh lo Eloah, v'chol hadar b'chutz la'aretz dome kemi she'ein lo Eloah. It's a famous saying from Masechet Ketubot. Anyone who lives in Israel is like they have a God. If you live in Beverly Hills, you don't have a God, right? Obviously, that's the extreme to make a point. But the point is that the people of Yerushalayim took that understanding to the extreme. Literally, they took it. In other words, we're no longer in Eretz Israel. Now the elders of Yehuda, now we understand why they came to Yechezkel in Bavel. And they said to him, we're now in Bavel. We're not in Israel anymore. Do we have chelek? Are we part of the Jewish people? Are we still considered to be part of the people of God? Because we're no longer there. And not only that, our brothers in Israel, that's what they tell us also. They said that we have nothing to do with that. And that's what they're trying to figure out. That's their question. This is why they come to Yechezkel. So, Eicha, what's the Eicha? That's Tehillim. That's not Eicha, but yes. Yeah, that says what? Of course they're crying. It's difficult to be in exile. It's difficult to be in Galut. The question is, but that's against our perception. That's against our belief that Meloch Kol Haaretz Kevodo. Remember what Yechezkel is saying in chapter Gimel already. Meloch Kol Haaretz Kevodo. And the whole description of the chariot leaving has to do with what? With the fact that what? The Shekhinah is mobile. Can go either way, can go any way. It's not limited to the temple.
So what right do they have to kill?
Well, they killed because they were wicked, because there was injustice, because all that stuff, because they were bad people, wicked people. So the question is, okay, it's 12:03. If we have 5 minutes, I can finish like this thought. Okay, let's just five more minutes, okay? So now it's the message of the entire prophecy. And that's the punchline of the whole prophecy of those 4 chapters. And Pasuk Tetzain. 16. Lachen emor, therefore say, כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, כי הרחקתים בגויים והפיצותים בארצות, you're dispersed in the other nations, ויהי להם למקדש מעט, and I'm going to be for them מקדש מעט. What is מקדש מעט? A mini מקדש. We call it today in our terminology, Beit Knesset. בארצות אשר באו שם, in all the places where they are. לכן, אמור, כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, וקבצתי אתכם מן העמים ואספתי אתכם מן הארצות, therefore I will gather you from all the nations and all the lands, אשר נפוצותם בהם, that you are dispersed, ונתתי לכם את אדמת ישראל, and you will be returned to the land of Israel. ובאו שמה והסירו את כל שיקוציה, and you will get there, meaning to the land of Israel, and you will remove all the abominations. ונתתי להם לב אחד ורוח חדשה אתן בקרבם, and you will receive new spirit, a new heart. ואסיר אותי לב האבן מבשרה, ונתתי להם לב בשר, and that heart of stone that they have will be removed and replaced with a heart of flesh. למען בחוקותיי ילכו ואת משפטיי ישמרו ועשו אותם, so they can follow my commandments and be my nation. והיו לי לעם, ואני אהיה להם לאלוהים, and I will be their God. והלב שיקוציהם ותועבותיהם, ליבם הולך דרכם, בראשם נתתי נאום אדוני אלוהים. So the prophecy says 2 things. First, if there's distance between the Jewish people and God, it is not because of the people of Babel, but rather it's the people of Yerushalayim. That's claim number 1. Number 2, not the people of Babel, not the ones in exile are the ones that drifted away from God, but rather it's the people of Yerushalayim who pushed away God. Next, the Shekhinah itself that is departing, that has departed from Yerushalayim because of the actions of the people of Yerushalayim, is going to go now to the exile, to be with those in exile. Now we understand the full story of the chariot of the Merkava. After Yechezkel understands that what he saw in chapter 1, these was the Kruvim. Now he understands that those Kruvim, i.e. those foundations of the chariot, are replacing, if you remember I mentioned before, don't get confused between the two Kruvim, they are replacing the Kruvim of the temple. And those Kruvim are going to stay with the Shekhinah until when? Until it goes back to the temple. For that, you have to go to chapter 43, where there's a whole description of how the Shekhinah is going to go back to Yerushalayim and back to the temple. Now, but in the meantime, this is going to be Mikdash Me'at. This is going to be a mini Mikdash where the Shekhinah is the chariot. The chariot is the Mikdash Me'at. It's not going to be a built one. It's not going to have sacrifices. It's not going to have the altar. It's not going to have the Mizbeach, all that kind of stuff. But it still symbolizes the fact and the idea that the Shekhinah is going to be with the Jewish people, period. So, the focal point of this entire prophecy of 3 chapters, Chet, Tet, Yud, Yud, 4 chapters, 8 through 11, is not the departure of the Shekhinah because of all the abominations and all the stuff that is happening in Yerushalayim and in the temple, but rather it's the clear destination. It's the journey and the clear destination that the Shekhinah is doing. Following those already in exile. So it's not only disconnect from the temple, but rather a connection to the people of Israel who are now already in Bavel. This is the nucleus that is going to return to Israel, is going to rebuild Israel, and is going to follow God's rules. That's what happened. So, and this idea that is the nucleus, this is the nucleus from which the redemption is going to come, is very, very significant. These are the people, not the people that stayed in Israel, but rather those who are already in exile. These are the ones who are going to receive Lev Chadash, Veruach Chadasha, a new spirit and a new heart. These are the people who are going to follow God's rules. And that is the message that Yechezkel is asked to give to the people of Bavel. So, not only that, he uses the root, the shorish Gaal. Gaal, right? In the context of the Torah, Geulat Karka. That means the Redeemer. So the people of in Bavel are going to be the redeemers of the land, as the Torah talks about it in the times of the Jubilee, etc. And that's against the claim of the people of Yerushalayim that they say, Lanu nitna haaretz, the land belongs to us. The message that Yechezkel is given, it's the opposite. You guys are going to be kicked out, and those who are actually returned to the land are the ones that were exiled. Now, I want to finish this with the last move, the last step that the chariot does. I'm looking at Psukim Kaf Bet, Kaf Gimel, that's the end of the chapter. Okay, so the Ofanim and the Kruvim start to move. And the glory of God is above them. And the whole structure ascends and rests on the mountain that is east of the city. This is the last journey of the chariot that we have in this book, actually in all the books. According to here, the Shekhinah carried by the chariot goes from the city to the mountain that is east of the city, which is Har HaZeitim. Right? Har HaZeitim. Olive Mountain. Now, is it the last stop of the chariot or just a temporary stop? According to what we just learned, no. The chariot is going to continue its journey all the way northeast into Bavel, which is basically Iraq of today. And this is where the chariot is going to continue functioning as a mikdash me'at, temporary dwelling for the Shekhinah. Why the Har HaZeitim is so significant, specifically Har HaZeitim? Because both Zechariah and Yechezkel are talking. Yechezkel is going to talk about that in the last 8 chapters of the book, but Zechariah also talks in a description of the return that he talks about God fighting against. It says, Adonai v'nilcham b'goyim hahem ki yom elachamo b'yomchav v'amdu raglav, so to say figuratively, that God's feet stood on that day al har hazeitim asher pnei Yerushalayim mikedem. God stand on Har HaZeitim fighting the enemies. So now, with the end of that vision, also that virtual tour that Yechezkel had in Yerushalayim also ended, and he can go back to the elders who are sitting in front of him, and therefore that's exactly, and they're waiting to hear what he has to say, and he says to them, I'm looking at the last 2 verses of the chapter 24 and 25, Veruach nesa'atni v'tevi'eni kasdima el hagola, b'mareh beruach Elohim, v'ya'al me'alai hamareh asher ra'iti. And the wind took me, lifted me, brought me to the exile. I'm back where I'm physically, where I am also physically, i.e. in Bavel. V'ya'al me'alai hamareh asher ra'iti, and the vision has departed me. V'adaber el hagola et kol divrei Adonai asher er'ani, and I have told the people in front of me, people of the Golah, people in the exile, what I have seen, all the stuff, not all I've seen, sorry, all the stuff that God told me to. I've transmitted the information. So it seems that the elders of Yehuda are leaving the house of Yechezkel feeling a little bit better. They're not going to be bothered by the claims of the people of Yerushalayim that you guys have left, therefore you're out, you're cut out. That's it, finished. Now they understand that God is with them in exile, and there's going to be a day in the future when they go back to Israel. They're going to worship God. They're going to keep the commandments. Things are going to be good at some point, and it's going to be them who are going to achieve that, not the people of Yerushalayim. So that is, and that is also a, there's so many like ideas behind that, but I'm just going to mention one because we need to finish. Is that there's a fundamental core value of Judaism here. That we don't need a physical place in order to worship God. God is not limited to a specific place. We can be God's people with all what it means, also here in Beverly Hills.
Like all the nations, Christian, Muslim, they don't have a temple.
Yeah, but they don't believe in the same God also,
Right.
okay?
But the idea of,
Okay, so God is not limited, that's number one. And number two, God is with us. This is something that was very, very, very difficult for people back then to understand. For us, we take it for granted. But for them, because all the rituals, all this, the religious center was the temple. How can we survive without that? Maybe we're not. Maybe we can be. Comes the message from God through Yechezkel and says, first of all, if you want the Shekhinah to stay in Yerushalayim, you want the Shekhinah to stay in the temple, they have to be worthy for it. You're not going to do the right things. The Shekhinah is leaving, and I'm showing you that now it's leaving. That's number one. Number two, it's not leaving and stays somewhere, goes back to Shamayim or whatever that is, but rather is going to be with you, even in Bavel, even in Beverly Hills, wherever you are, as long as you are worthy. So it's on you.
right?
Responsibility. Like you gotta be worthy. These are core values of Judaism. That we see how Chazal developed all this theology from those psukim in Yechezkel. So next week we do not have a class.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's Yeshiva week, so I'm going to be away
Ah,
with my kids. But yes, I deserve, well, vacation with 4 little kids, it's not really a vacation.
right.
It's not really a vacation. It's going to be a vacation for them.
Oh, then, yes.
Yes.
Not if you take it this way now, when they go up, you miss this time.
No, for sure.
But it blocked you away.
No, for sure.
And my granddaughter.
No, we're not going to Israel. Our plans are not 100% confirmed yet, but we have a couple of options. My wife is in charge of that. But no, we're not going. We're going to Israel actually in March, because we have